So in this third valuation method, we're going to look at how we can evaluate different properties which may not have comparables and may not be income generating. And it's going to be the cost approach. Let's take a look. So the cost approach is the main way to evaluate anything that just doesn't have any clear comparables and does not necessarily generate income through rents. So classic examples of these are building a warehouse or a factory or the things of that nature, which even though there might be other factories around, they just have totally different configurations, don't have the same kind of space. So you really can't compare them. So based on that, we use the cost approach. But you could also think about using the cost approach for residential property as well. So if I think about residential properties, like the whole idea behind the cost approach is how much would it cost me to rebuild something similar to that? So first off, what you need to figure out is how much would the land in that area cost me? If there's vacant land, it's easy to figure out. And then how much would it cost me to rebuild something like this? And then you want to remove depreciation, because naturally if the building hasn't been built last year, there's a bit of wear and tear going on. It's lost value. It's just, there's certain things like the roofing and other things like that might need to be changed in the next few years. So you have to remove some of the value based on those things. It's not as if it was new. So for warehouses, you'd calculate the land of that's it's situated on, how much land it has, the excavation fees and everything else to prep it, the amount of money it would cost to rebuild it, and then remove the depreciation. So that's straightforward for warehouses, but you can also think about this if you're thinking about buying a house in Costa Rica, or it could even be more locally. The thing that it requires though is that in that area, to make it as best as possible, is that you have to have access to vacant land. So if you're looking at lakefront properties in an area where there's houses all around and there's no way to buy a vacant land and you want to be on that lake without destroying one of the houses, well, it's really hard to evaluate. But if you're somewhere like Lake Memphrey Magog, there's still some old houses there. So sometimes you have these residences that are selling for pretty much the value of the land, because you're not going to pay more than $1 million to have an old house that's that's just falling apart. So you would expect them to clear it out and then build something there. So if that property is selling for roughly $1 million, well, then you could think, well, if I want to compare this other house that I'm interested in, well, how much would it cost me to rebuild this house nearby on a vacant land? And then remove depreciation, and then you could evaluate whether this house is a good deal or whether it's really too expensive. Obviously, when you're rebuilding, there's a certain time delay, so if you have to move in right away, it's a different story. But if we put aside that time delay, you could evaluate how much it would cost to buy the land, how much it would cost to build that house, remove depreciation because it has some wear and tear, and then see what the price would be. And that's an interesting thing to look at, because sometimes you might have properties selling for $200,000-$300,000 and the houses are selling for over $1 million, and those houses would only cost a few $100,000 to build, so maybe $300,000-$400,000. Still a lot of money, but you're comparing a situation where this house on this land, similar to the other one, takes about $700,000 to construct, including everything, whereas this one's selling for $1 million. So even though cost approach is normally more tailored around things that don't have comparables and don't generate rents, I think it's an interesting approach that should be used when valuing residences. So keep that in mind if you choose in your project or in your life to look at a property that has different pieces of land nearby. Evaluate that to see whether you want to pay more to have access to it right now, or if you could buy a property, build it yourself, whether it's yourself or through an entrepreneur is what I mean. Have someone else build it, make the plans, have it built. And if it comes out a lot more inexpensive, well, you might as well do that option and save a lot of money. So different things to keep in mind. I hope this video on cost approach was interesting to you. We'll talk more about it and go through a series of examples, and I hope you have a good day. If you found this video interesting, please consider subscribing or joining my class where I guide you to apply and expand on the information found in these videos to real-life examples. Have a good day.